Wonderful. Thank you, friends, for joining this call and this webinar. I just want to confirm that people can hear me. Let me just quickly unmute you.
All attendees are muted and may unmute themselves by pressing star 6.
Great.
All attendees are muted. All attendees are muted and may unmute themselves by pressing star 6.
Great. Thank you, friends. To get a confirmation that people can hear me, if one of or two of you can unmute your lines using star 6 and indicate that you can hear what I'm saying, I'd appreciate that. Perhaps Anne? Oh, Anne can hear me. Great. Thank you so much. Okay, great. Thank you all for joining this call hosted by the Catholic Climate Covenant. We are seeking to enlist your help in lifting up the voice of climate change in particularly critical states, which is why you in particular have been invited. And what we would like to do is collaborate with you and co-create with you strategies to work with your legislators and also to write letters to the editor. And this is a training designed to do this. And the presenters are going to be myself, Jose Aguto, from the Catholic Climate Covenant, as well as Dan DeLeo. We are deeply grateful for your time during this evening, at least on East Coast time, to hear what we have to say and consider collaborating with us in the future. And so with that, I'm going to start with explaining the importance of faith-based advocacy and meeting with your legislator, and then Dan's going to lead us in a letter to the editor training, after which time we welcome your questions and opinions on this effort. So I first wanted to start with Pope Francis's call to us to actively engage in the political sphere using our faith-based leadings to advocate for what we care for during this historic turning point where so many critical aspects of our lives are on the line. And as Pope Francis is saying, in this particular letter that he sent to people taking part in the U.S. Regional World Meeting of Popular Movements in California in February of this year, that it depends on our involvement and participation in these popular movements. And what we're hoping to work with you is to join that effort through strategies that we hope are consistent with your faith leadings and consistent with the Catholic Church on climate change and care for our common home and care for the poor. The aspect I want to focus on is how important it is for constituents to meet with your legislators. According to this survey, but which is also political convention, 97% of 260 congressional staffers said that constituent visits to their legislators have some or a lot of influence on their boss on undecided issues. And this strategy is more influential than any other group or strategy. Going to this slide, indicating the importance of the persuasiveness of constituent visits, you'll see at the top 97%. And this also, what this doesn't reflect is that 94% of staffers feel like that those constituent visits are effective when they meet in the local district or state offices. How that manifests from a faith perspective, I used to work for the Friends Committee on National Legislation, and we were blessed to persuade Representative Chris Gibson to introduce a climate change resolution, which ultimately resulted in the creation of the bipartisan House Climate Solutions Caucus, which currently now has 52 members as of yesterday, forming a solid foundation for bipartisan dialogue and solutions on climate change. Obviously, in this current political atmosphere, we may not see something super significant, but moving in an incremental way to creating the political space for that movement. And this interfaith effort started with an interfaith meeting with Representative Chris Gibson, consisting of Catholics, Quakers, and Presbyterians, all of them constituents, speaking from a moral grounding, asking him to lift up this resolution. So the start was interfaith. And as you see in the second comment, as well as the picture, we had 7th grade students persuade Mike Fitzpatrick to support the Prepare Act, which was a piece of climate-related legislation, and then he ultimately signed on as a co-sponsor to the Gibson resolution. And then lastly, an interfaith delegation this year from Virginia, comprised of Catholics, Muslims, and Protestants, persuaded Representative Comstock to co-sponsor the Stefanik climate resolution, which was formerly the Gibson resolution, same language, but Representative Gibson did not seek re-election. So this resolution is live in this particular Congress. What is significant about faith-based advocacy is that we speak from our faith, which is inherently about the interests of others and not self-interest. Legislators are often more receptive to meeting with people with faith leanings because of this more charitable approach to lobbying. And so we want to be able to encourage our constituents, including you, if you're interested, to do this lobbying. And we will help with training, and we believe that it's something that is very attainable. And our approach is to be polite and respectful and grounded in faith, to seek common ground, to tell personal stories, and to assure you that you don't need to be an expert, but that legislators are very much wanting to hear from you in order for them to understand where they should be headed so that they may be able to support their constituents. And so if you're interested in lobbying your legislator on issues of concern related to climate change, please reach out to me, and because we conduct lobby trainings, and I can do so also on an individualized basis. And it's especially important, again, in some of your key states, because it's one thing to work in Vermont or Massachusetts or California. It's another to work in some of the states that are just barely leaning into climate change, so that we can then turn the national tide into an ethos of climate action. So very much welcome your interest in this form of advocacy. My contact information is there. And welcome your outreach to me. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Jose, for that. So as Jose said, we're delighted that you all have chosen to take time with us this evening to engage, to talk about ways of engagement with your elected officials. As Jose said, in-district meetings and face-to-face communications with your elected officials are far and away the most impactful way of engaging your elected officials. But there are a lot of different tools that can both complement and support that, as well as really prime the pump to be able to have meaningful conversations, in-person conversations. One of those tools we feel, and a lot of people who have done this work have felt, are letters to the editor. And so what we'll do now is just go over just kind of the basics of what is a letter to the editor. We'll talk about why they're important. I'll suggest some characteristics of successful letters to the editor, and then we'll provide a template that you can consider if you're interested and feel called to write letters to the editor that you might find helpful as you begin to bring your own voice into the public square. And then we'll talk about ways of submitting LTEs and talk about ways that the Covenant can support you as you potentially look to submit letters to the editor. So beginning, what is a letter to the editor? As it sounds, a letter to the editor is a letter sent by a reader to the editor of a publication. Typically, and we'll talk about this more in a moment, typically this is a local publication. Most often it's the local newspaper. So this has a long, rich history in American civic life. And there are a number of different things that folks can do in letters to the editor, but they typically fall into one of three categories. Number one, people comment on a news story. So this would be the material in the front section, the main section of the newspaper that provides the objective reporting. Typically, they're syndicated stories in this day and age from AP, Reuters. And so people want to provide commentary on what's going on in the world. Sometimes people write in response to a published opinion piece, either an editorial that's written by the board of that particular newspaper, or that's potentially written by a guest op-ed writer. So, and people can write in response, and they can affirm what's been said in the op-ed pages or by the editorial board. They can disagree with or nuance something that's been said. And finally, letters to the editor can urge action and address community leaders. And so this can really be a catalyst for action, civic action by constituents, but it can also be a way to address elected officials directly in the public square. So why are LTEs important? I think they're important for a number of reasons, but I think most directly LTEs are important because they really are a way to shape public discourse. In civil society, there are, I think, few outlets that provide as wide and rich a space as the pages of a newspaper, and specifically the LTEs. LTEs are a way to raise awareness about an issue. So if something you feel is important isn't being discussed in your community, it's a way to place this on the radar of the people that you live and work with. LTEs are also a way to change opinions. So they're a way to expose people to different ideas, different perspectives, and to have people sitting at their breakfast table over a cup of coffee think about values and issues in ways that they never had before. So they really are a way to shape the way people talk and think about issues in the world. Additionally, LTEs really are a way to influence public policy. So they, as I said, you can speak directly to elected officials, and Jose has shared his experience of working with staffers who have said that whenever an elected official was mentioned by name in the pages of an op-ed or an LTE, that piece was placed on the staff meeting agenda for the following week. So a lot of elected officials, members of Congress, have staffers track the LTE pages in the publications in their district or in their state, and specifically talk about and discuss pieces that reference that member. So they really are a way to share your voice with your elected official, and they're a way to be in dialogue with all kinds of officials, people who are supportive of a particular issue, people who are oppositional, as well as members of Congress who are non-committal, who are on the fence or for one reason or another haven't come out in favor of or against a particular issue or a piece of legislation. Additionally, LTEs are a way to energize constituents, and we'll talk about this in the template of the LTE, but as you write your LTE, this is a way to bring people on board. This is a way to get people excited about your issue. This is a way to give them cause to contact their elected officials so that it's not just you, it's you and a whole bunch of other people. So it really is a way to catalyze a movement. So LTEs really are an important tool in the toolbox of civic life. So in general, I would say there are several characteristics or qualities of successful LTEs, and so I'll just highlight some of them here. By definition and by genre, LTEs are short. So typically LTEs are only able to be 100, maybe 150, at the outside range 200 words. So these really are meant to be clear, concise pieces of writing. Because they're intended for a general readership and a wide audience, the best LTEs are jargon-free. So this is not the place to use insider language or get into technicalities. This really is meant to be accessible for everybody. And in order to do that, LTEs, the most successful ones, are written at a 5th or a 6th grade level. And that might sound overly simplistic, and in a sense, maybe it is, but it really is, as I say, meant to be an accessible piece of writing that can bring everybody in the community into conversation. Additionally, LTEs, I would suggest, like all good pieces of writing, are use active voice. And so if you can reach back to grammar school and remember the difference between active and passive voice, active is declarative, it's powerful, it owns the statement. So avoiding was and were and ing and all of that, it increases the strength of the piece and also gives you more space because you're using fewer words. The best LTEs really do, as Jose said, maintain a respectful tone, especially in this era of incivility. This is tremendously important. I think the New York Times pages are kind of the gold standard for this in terms of its use of titles. So if you notice, the Times always refers to people as Senator Smith, Ms. Jones, so they always include a person's title as a sign of respect. The best LTEs avoid sarcasm and ad hominems. You're not taking shots at people. This really is a way to offer objective analysis and personal stories. The best LTEs are well edited, so as I say here, you avoid spelling and grammaringly-ish mistakes. For two reasons. Number one, if it's poorly edited, it's probably not going to get published. But number two, it really undermines the authority and the credibility of the person who's submitting and being considered by an editor. If an editor sees something that's just poorly constructed, the chances that they're going to accept it dramatically decrease because they probably think if they can't take the time to edit something, they probably aren't a bona fide expert or know what they're talking about in terms of more complex things. So it seems simple, and it is, but it really is important to be well edited and grammatically sound. So moving into some of the specifics of LTEs, and again, this is just a general template, but we have found it to be helpful. On the right-hand side, you see some examples of LTEs that were successfully submitted by Catholics in the state of Ohio. So we've been working with and supporting folks in Ohio as well as several other states to draft and place LTEs. And so these are some of the specifics based on our experience. LTEs begin with a topical hook. And as I say, typically that's a published story, either a news article or an op-ed. Sometimes it's an unreported local event. So every once in a while you can get an LTE that says, I'm disappointed that the Columbus Dispatch didn't cover XYZ, but most oftentimes it's a published news article or an op-ed. And so part of what that requires is that obviously that you're an engaged reader, that you're reading what's being written, that you're thinking critically and thinking about ways to connect it to the issues that you care about. Successful LTEs always have a personal connection, so a way to facilitate local dialogue. It's important to talk about why this issue is important to you. This isn't, an academic article in a national journal. This is a way to talk with your neighbors and tell them why this is important to you. So that personal connection really is important. It is important to include facts in what you're talking about. Again, it provides the credibility piece and kind of buttresses your argument. And the easiest way to do that is with in-text citation. I'll give you an example here in a couple of minutes. But just to provide, some basic facts. Again, this is not the space to get into technicalities. Again, because it is meant to be a local conversation, this is primarily addressed to a local audience. You can certainly talk about national issues, and in fact, we would encourage you to do so given the nature of climate change, but it really is important to bring it back to the local issue and articulate those local connections. And I'll give you, again, an example here in a minute. The best LTEs offer brief analysis. So again, you're avoiding in-depth technicalities and avoiding very abstract theoretical conversations. This is, again, meant to be accessible, and so it offers just a brief analysis. Successful LTEs a lot of times finish with a call to action, and this is where you can begin to name the specifics as well as the specific people, and so you can conclude with an ask that's directed at particular institutions or persons. So again, it can be elected officials, it can be constituents, it can be both, but the best LTEs identify a problem but then offer some type of solution in the form of a call to action. And then finally, the best LTEs conclude on a positive note. So again, this is a hopeful message that we bring as Christians, as Catholics, as Easter people. So despite the issue that we're engaged with in particular, we are hopeful that we can successfully address this issue given the current political reality. So in this political reality, as Jose said, there are a few options that are available to us, and so I'll just recap these again, just so they're fresh in your memory. So the first that we're working on with the Covenant is this bipartisan House Climate Solutions Caucus. So as Jose said, there are, as of today, 52 members. This is really, really important and really unique because by charter, the caucus has to be bipartisan. So for a Republican or a Democrat to join the caucus, they have to seek out and join with a member of another party or of the other party. So by definition, it's always going to be equally balanced, and by definition, it's always going to be a space that fosters the bipartisan cooperation that is going to inevitably needed to address this issue. So we're asking representatives to join the caucus, and again, that'll require them to reach out to their colleagues across the aisle in order to do so. The second is the Climate Solutions Act of 2017, which is H.R. 2326. And so this is a piece of legislation that has come out of the caucus, and it would recommend policies and actions to reduce greenhouse gas pollution to both the president and the Congress, as well as individual states. And so these would obviously be grounded in science, and this is tremendously important because the president and top congressional leaders from both parties would appoint the members of the commission. And in doing so, they would be agreeing that climate change is real and human caused and that it requires a solution. So again, this is a concrete way to move the conversation in a direction that's different from where it has been heading in recent times. And so we're asking that representatives co-sponsor this piece of legislation. So these are the two things that we're working on at the Covenant. And so in terms of a template for successful LTEs and ways to integrate that particular piece of advocacy, this is one suggested model. Again, there are lots of ways that you can do this, but based on our experience, this is a formula that we feel confident can successfully bring this message into the pages of newspapers and into the public square. So you might begin with a hook. So again, talking about what you're responding to or identifying a piece. So you might say something like, I write in response to John Smith's editorial, and you would give the title and the date of that piece. That's standard for reference to previous pieces. You might then move to the personal connection and explain why this issue is important to you. And here, I think it's really, really important, as Jose referenced, to identify yourself as a person of faith, because faith communities and faith persons really do bring a unique insight and a unique set of core values to a conversation. So you could say something like, as a Catholic, climate change is a moral issue because, and here you can bring in any of the things that the church has said that you can find on our website in terms of the options for the poor, care for creation, promotion of the common good, all of these things. You might then move to offering some facts with in-text citations. So here, this is what I mean. You might reference something in a sentence and say, according to two new studies in the journal National Nature, climate change, current greenhouse gas pollution trends will likely cause catastrophic and irreversible climate change by 2100. So you may have seen these two studies mentioned in the national news recently. These were probably the most ominous as of late predictions about where we're headed. So, but with the in-text citation, you're just mentioning according to whatever, this is the case. Again, this is a national and really a global issue, but it is important to make the local connections. So you might then pivot and say something like, here in whatever state you're in, here in Nebraska, here in Missouri, here in Montana. This is cut off at the bottom, but it says the Union of Concerned Scientists warns that climate change will impact agriculture by 50% by whatever year. So you're making this salient for the people in your community. And again, this could be any number of issues depending on what's happening in your local city or your local state. From there, you might move to offer that brief analysis, and so this is where you can bring in some of the advocacy work that we're doing specifically at the Covenant. And so you might say something like, in the face of climate change, the bipartisan House Climate Solutions Caucus can help enact meaningful climate change legislation. Members have already introduced the Climate Solutions Commission Act of 2017, and as a Catholic, I believe these initiatives are critically important, and I should have edited my own work for grammar. I believe these initiatives are critically important. So it is, again, it's a way to offer brief analysis, but analysis that is substantive. And that sets you up then for the call to action. And so in light of what you said and what you've laid out, you can say something like, I therefore call on Representative Smith to join the bipartisan House Climate Solutions Caucus and co-sponsor the Climate Solutions Commission Act of 2017. You could stop there and identify the elected official as the person to whom you're trying to speak, but you could also go on and say, I also urge my fellow community members to contact him and similarly ask that he do so. So again, it's a way to speak to two different audiences in one space, the elected official and constituents who can then follow up and really echo that message. And again, finally, you would want to conclude on a positive note. So you might say something like, I'm hopeful that Representative Smith will demonstrate the moral courage needed to protect the citizens of wherever from the current and future effects of climate change. So again, this is not an airtight model or a template, but we do think this is a helpful way to approach writing an LTE, and given the current political realities. All of this will be available on our website, but we just wanted to suggest this and present this as one way. So in terms of submissions, what we always encourage you to remember that we're here to help. This is what we do at the Covenant, and so if there's anything that we can do in terms of looking at submissions, if you'd like us to take a look at something you've written and to be your editor, we can do that. If you'd like to contact us and say what's going on in my area, we can help you monitor what's happening. Once you've decided that you want to submit, what we do encourage you to do is to look first online and find out what the criteria are for submitting to your particular newspaper. Sometimes they have just a text field that you can type right into. Sometimes they have you email it. But so take a look and see what happens, how they request LTEs be submitted. Once you've submitted an LTE, typically you'll hear back from a newspaper within about a week if they are going to publish it, sometimes as far out as 10 days, but beyond 10 days, it's probably not going to get published and you won't hear anything from the newspaper. However, it does happen sometimes that newspapers will not contact you and then go ahead and publish something. And so after you've submitted something, we do encourage you to monitor both online and print editions to see if what you've submitted has been published without contacting you to verify your information or to request follow-up information. So definitely monitor online and print once you've submitted. And if you do have an LTE published, we really do ask that you send us publications. If it's an online piece, you can send us the hyperlink. If it's print edition only, you can snap a picture and send it to us. My email is here. You've got Jose's email. You can send it to the general Covenant email inbox. But we really do ask that you take the time to send that to us, because we're able to then lift those up as success stories and share those with other people and really use that as a way to encourage people to write their own LTEs and to facilitate a dialogue in their area and to show them that, yeah, this really can happen and it is effective. So please, if you do have an LTE published, let us know about it so that we can celebrate it and lift it up as a success story. In terms of just some basic follow-up resources, on our website, we have two. We have how to write LTEs and op-eds, and so a lot of what we've covered tonight will be on there, is on there, but it's a place to follow up in the weeks and months ahead. The other link that we've provided here is the advocacy link. And so here we've got our most up-to-date advocacy work. And so in the weeks and months ahead, if you want to see what the ask is that you might consider including in an LTE and aren't sure what's happening at the national level, you can check out our advocacy page and find out what we're working on at the national level, and obviously you can contact us about local connections. So hopefully that's a helpful overview and introduction to LTEs. As I said, I think they really are valuable tools as Catholics, but really as citizens to shape public discourse, to influence public policy. So as I said, we're delighted that you all chose to take the time to talk with us about this tonight. And at this point, I think I will turn it back over to Jose to facilitate a Q&A, and we are very open to having conversation and answering any follow-up questions that you all might have.
Great. Thank you, Dan, for that excellent lecture. By the way, Dan is now a professor at Creighton University, so we'll forgive him for his grammatical mistake. And so,
awesome.
So thank you, friends, for being on the line. You're in Q&A mode, so if you wanted to speak, press *6 on your telephone or on your mic that's at the top of your screen, and feel free to voice your questions and comments, or if you want to, you can also type into the chat box to the left of your screen. So welcoming your thoughts. While you're contemplating or don't have any questions, I also wanted to note that your LTEs can be submitted to Catholic publications as well. You may actually find a greater receptivity there, especially if it has a faith voice. Oh, very good. Someone has a question?
Yes, this is Anne from Montana.
Hi, Anne.
Hi, I want to thank you, both of you, for your input this evening. I certainly will participate by writing something. My question to you would be in the area of submission. So I would write my my bit, and then it says that we can send our submission to you, and that means that we can send it to you for your input, your correction, or anything like that. Am I correct on that?
Yes, that's correct. We're happy, and you certainly don't have to do that. If you want to just submit your letter directly to your newspaper, that's obviously wonderful. But yeah, we're certainly here to serve as a resource throughout the entire process. So at any point, if you'd like us to take a look or provide feedback, we're more than happy to do that. So at any point, feel free to email something to us, and we're happy to take a look and follow up with you.
Okay, and my second question then would be the timeline on this, submitting something.
Yep.
Like how soon does it happen? I thought I had read that somewhere, but I'm not sure that I heard that this evening. Like what's our what is the timeline for getting something into a paper?
Sure. So letters to the editor are continuous, and so they're happening every day of the year. And so anytime that you see something that you think is worth commenting on, it's a good time to put pen to paper and get something down and to submit it to the newspaper. So I would say that in terms of responding to a particular piece, the sooner the better. Like if you're looking at responding to an editorial that was written on Sunday, you would want to submit a letter in response to that sometime early that following week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday maybe, but I would say kind of after 3 or 4 days, the conversation will have moved on because editorials are published every day. So I would say within a couple of days for sure, if you're able to, that increases the likelihood of it being published because it's more relevant to the current conversation.
Well, that's helpful. I just know that for me personally right now, I'm engaged in activities that are taking me out of the state and that kind of a thing. But I will certainly, while I'm here, I will watch for things and so are you saying that we would this is not a one-time thing? It's like it can be, and not that we want to overdo it.
Yeah, no, you're able. Typically newspapers, and I don't know if they publish it anywhere, but typically newspapers do have an internal policy that they won't publish something from the same person within a certain period, like maybe 2 months, 3 months, something like that. So if you're fortunate enough to have an LTE published, you probably would have to wait a few months before the newspaper would be willing to consider publishing something from you again. But the nice thing is that you can continue to monitor the conversations even when you're out of state, when you're traveling. You can monitor the website of a newspaper, and so you can stay up to date on the conversations and be ready for with responses to whatever's happening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ann, and I just wanted to know one thing with regard to what's happening in Montana, and you likely know this as well. There is what is being called a flash drought, one that was not expected in the plains, that is literally burning up the wheat crop in Montana, North Dakota, and South Dakota, where they may be predicting like 50% reductions in initial estimates. So there is definitely.
Yes. I'm a North Dakota girl, but I work in Montana, and both states, a section of Montana is in that drought area, and the fires are burning. North Dakota pretty much is drought, and my family are farmers, so they are not having crops. They are not having the crop this year.
Oh, might they also be interested? We are also looking for advocates in North Dakota as well.
Well, because I don't live there, there's certainly other people that could get involved in this. I'm a school sister of Notre Dame.
Okay.
Bismarck has, I guess anyone can do this. You don't have to be a woman religious but I know that the Benedictine sisters are very involved in the issues at hand in our state back home. So they might be somebody. I don't think it would be, I don't feel comfortable in doing it for North Dakota, simply because I don't live there at the time. So I'm not reading the newspapers from there. I mean, my family keeps me abreast on some things, but.
Thank you, sister. I completely understand.
Yeah.
Following up, Jamie has a question here. She's asking, is a hook necessary given the climate news that tends to be so negative but is so critical? Couldn't that be the hook? And Jamie, I see from Missouri. I'm originally from St. Louis and have all my family in St. Louis. So I'd like to follow up and find out more about your background and story. But in response to your question, I think the answer is yes and no. And I'll unpack that. I think the answer is initially yes, because a hook provides continuity with the conversation that's happening in the pages of a newspaper. So in terms of a hook, this would be a way to follow up on what's already been said, either in the news or in the editorial pages. I would say no, a hook is not necessary in the sense that it might not have to be an explicitly climate change piece that you're responding to, so the news or the op-eds, simply because fortunately or unfortunately, climate change is an issue, as we all know, that touches on virtually every other issue that's being talked about in society. And so I think a lot of times identifying a hook is really as simple or as difficult as playing kind of the game of 2 degrees of separation and being able to connect the dots between what's being said and how that's related to climate change. So, there may be an article that's published about the droughts that are happening, or there may be an article that's published about refugees, domestically or around the world. And I think an opportunity for a hook is there if you're able to succinctly say, we need to recognize that these droughts are likely in part because of climate change, or this is a harbinger of things to come, or with refugees, being able to name the fact that a lot of people are displaced because of the consequences of climate change, because of water stress, food stress, rising sea levels. So again, I think it's important to have a hook, but that hook, I would suggest, doesn't necessarily have to be climate.
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you, Dan, for your response. Any other thoughts or questions?
This is Ann from Maryland. I just wanted to say hello to Ann from Montana. And just to kind of comment on that time frame, it is recess, so representatives and senators are in their district and state offices. So this is a prime opportunity to both do those visits that Jose talked about and to see if you can't find a hook that leads to a letter to the editor where you can actually mention the name, perhaps in the call, to join the climate coalition, the climate group, and the thank you, caucus.
Yep.
I've heard many times from staffers that if their boss's name gets in the paper in a letter to the editor, their boss is going to see it and it's going to have an impact. So the 2 suggestions.
Good. And that is very true. I do know from attending meetings and around here that we are constantly told that the visit is number 1. It's most key in reaching the heart and the soul of the representative. So. I'd like to ask one more question. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to ask what you all are going to send to us. A copy of the webinar?
Yes, the webinar is recorded, and those who want to hear it, who missed it, that link will be on our website. We're also developing, and per your request, sort of guides on how to continue this, or how to do lobby training, and of course with this webinar, Dan has provided an excellent template for LTE writing.
Yeah, I think just something even as simple as some talking points that I could use when I go to do a visit, or I could use to build into the LTE.
All right. Very good. And what Dan's text in his presentation is a great basis for that, but we'll make that more accessible to you.
Right.
Great.
It would be great to have it as a Word document so that you can actually manipulate it and use it.
Very good.
Very good.
And that's actually something that we have done in support of some of the folks that have been writing in other states. I mentioned on the side of the slide here, we had some folks or some letters from folks in Ohio, and and that was part of the work that we had done in support of the advocacy that they were working on at the state level. They were looking at the renewable energy portfolio standards in Ohio, and so part of what we did was help them generate some talking points and develop some some short, concise pieces that, like as you say, you could bring to a lobby visit, or you could work into an LTE in a way that is technically sound, but it is brief and concise and widely accessible. So we have a lot of experience doing that, and we'd be happy to do that for any of the folks who are here to co-create with you, as Jose said, and work with you to develop some of those talking points for specifically for your area.
This is Anne again. I have a question about diocesan newspapers.
Sure.
Are you recommending that this be solely in a local paper?
We're ecumenical about that, if you will. Yes, either or.
Okay, thank you.
Does everybody have the Catholic
Right.
Climate Covenant website address? Because
What's
there
it
are
give-
great resources.
Oh,
Yeah, so our website is the top one here, CatholicClimateCovenant.org. But as a follow-up to the diocesan, I'm not sure, and Jose or Ann or others, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure that all diocesan newspapers accept letters to the editor. Given the staff size and the time constraints on diocesan offices, it may be the case that yours does, but I believe that some don't have LTE, so you'll definitely want to check and see if that's the case. But certainly your local secular newspaper would have LTEs. As Jose said, we're ecumenical in the sense that having things placed in either or helps the cause and helps shape the conversation.
Great, thank you. So do we have any other questions? Thank you so much for this robust discussion. Lovely. Oh, lovely. So we thank you so much for your time. We will definitely follow up with Anne to provide better resources or more accessible resources to you. And I hope you don't mind if we may be reaching out to you to pursue your consideration of interest in writing an LTE. As an overall matter, I would say that we at the Covenant are pivoting to more of this kind of activity because of the climate crisis, and also just the need for us to lift up the Catholic voice. So Dan, I don't know if you have any final comments before we sign off.
No, just to echo the gratitude for everyone taking the time. This really is the heart and soul of faith-based witness and advocacy. So we're just grateful for you all taking the time tonight and continue to offer any support and encouragement that we can.
Great. All right, friends. I hope you have a lovely evening and God's blessings to you in all that you do.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.